Hello and good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are in the world. Today, we're going to be reading some stories from the Am I the A-Hole subreddit, and we're going to be touring some beautiful islands in Animal Crossing. So, let's just get straight to it. Enjoy the video. The first story is posted by Puzzle-Headed Cod 8314. It's a relatively new story, so there aren't many comments. It's called, Am I the A-Hole for telling my brother to be cautious about his girlfriend and consider she wasn't telling the truth about her past? My brother has a new girlfriend. He's introduced us a couple of times, and he's told us about her. At first, everything was normal. Then, he told us that she worked for Doctors Without Borders before. This made no sense to me because I happen to know from talking to her that she doesn't have any kind of medical background. She has no education past high school. She definitely isn't a doctor or a nurse. I told my brother that he needed to be careful and should look more closely when she talks about her past. I was trying to warn him. He went off on me. Apparently, Doctors Without Borders doesn't just have doctors or nurses or even just other medical jobs. They hire other people like for HR, finance, supply chains, promoters, and construction people. My brother's girlfriend did one of those jobs when she worked overseas for them. There's photos of her from Doctors Without Borders themselves. I honestly didn't know this, and when I talked to him, I was just trying to help because I honestly didn't know they hired people besides doctors and nurses. It sounded suspect that someone with no education or medical background could go into war zones and work for them. My brother is pissed off, but I only had his interests in mind. Okay, before OP's brother even commented listing all of the other jobs, I already knew or figured that, the only jobs can't possibly be doctors and nurses. Who supervises them? Who does the administrative stuff? I'm not sure how old OP is, but he seems to not have that much life experience if he couldn't figure out that there are other jobs in any organization, even in the medical field, even at a hospital itself. You have more than just doctors and nurses or people who've studied medicine. You have people in different fields who come together to make any organization work. And the comment about somebody with no education not being allowed to work overseas just makes absolutely no sense. So many people are sent to fight overseas. So in this case, yes, I would say OP is the butthole for just making assumptions about his brother's girlfriend before asking further questions. Okay, so the few comments we have so far say, you're the asshole. If there were obvious red flags in their relationship, it could possibly warrant that you only had his interest in mind, but instead you sound needlessly suspicious. You could have just as easily asked what her position was and taken an interest, but instead you chose to accuse her of lying. Don't meddle, you're the asshole. Another person said, soft, you're the asshole. I think your intentions were good, but this seems like an unreasonable level of suspicion. Saying to your brother, hey, that's strange. I didn't know Doctors Without Borders hired people to do X, or what did she do for them again is fine. Jumping to the conclusion that this woman is a liar and my brother has to know was a bridge too far. Also, he's completely right. There's lots of things Doctors Without Borders needs done that isn't just doctoring. Okay, so people seem to be in agreement so far. OP is the asshole, and scrolling through the other four comments, they all say YTA, YTA, YTA. OP seems to be in the wrong for this one. This next story is written by Throwaway Request 11. And it's called, Am I the ass for denying my fiance's request to pay for his brother and his wife's IVF using my inheritance money? I F32 have recently inherited money from my mom. She was only parent and losing her is beyond devastating. The money can barely be called inheritance because my mom and her family didn't have much, but it's better than nothing. My fiance at first said I deserved it and have the right to do whatever I want with it. However, he told his whole family about it, and then his infertile brother and his wife pulled him aside for a conversation. After that, he started talking about wanting and needing a niece or nephew, basically hinting about his brother's infertility issues, then flat out requested that I pay for his brother's and wife's IVF treatment from my inheritance money. I was taken aback initially, but then I declined. He got mad, saying I was selfish because 1, he and I are blessed to never have issues with fertility, and 2, I literally have nothing to lose if I give them money. Easy money that I didn't work for. This upsets me to the point where I lashed out at him, telling him to stop bothering and guilting me about it. I denied the request as a final decision, but he got more agitated and went on a campaign to shame me for treating him as if he's not my future husband, therefore gets a say or right to my inheritance, and not giving a single crap about his family's issues. Well, in this case, OP is definitely not the asshole. OP does not owe anybody the money that she inherited from her mother. She doesn't even owe her fiance. Her fiance is not entitled to the money. If they were married, he still wouldn't be entitled to the money. And I honestly would not go through with marrying him. And as sad as it is that fiance's brother and his wife are going through fertility issues, I hope that they can find a way to afford the treatments and to get the treatment on their own. But OP is not morally obligated or financially obligated in any way to give them all of her inheritance. I mean, she needs that money as a safety net. I don't know. She doesn't mention savings or her finances. It doesn't sound like it's a lot of money, but it sounds like it's a significant amount for her, which means that she needs it for whatever she might face in the future, medical or otherwise. So no, OP, do not give that money away, not even part of it. They are very entitled people, and I would not trust them. I would not be marrying this guy, to be honest. Let's look at a couple of comments. Birdbite1319 says, not the asshole, and please do not marry this man. He's showing you his true colors. Get away now. And then we have another comment from Sagacious Saggy, who says, not the asshole. You are not a bank. Your inheritance is yours. Hearing that you didn't work for your mother's death should really make you reconsider this relationship with your fiance. This is the beginning of controlling behavior. Listen to the warnings. Okay, this next one looks like a long one, but sounds interesting. So, it is written by Open Worldliness 732, and it is called, Am I the a-hole for refusing to stop saying my mother kidnapped my son? Firstly, sorry, this is on mobile and throwaway. I, 32 female, emigrated to my husband's, 39, home country 5 years ago, and we have a beautiful son who is 3. My mother, 52, has always been controlling and frankly is a typical narcissist. She was dead against my moving and was even more upset when I had my son as a combination of her husband being terminally ill and the pandemic. She wasn't able to meet my son until this week, and she has complained bitterly how we cheated her out of a special time with her first grandson. I wasn't exactly excited about her coming to visit us, but my husband convinced me we should try to let our son have a relationship with her. Well, from the moment she arrived, she complained. Our house is too small. The garden is overlooked, etc. She complained. My son doesn't speak much English, and so she can't communicate with him. She complained that my son didn't want to hug her, that he wanted to stay with his paternal grandmother. My son split a drink, and she shouted at him. We are taking the gentle approach, so I told her not to do that, and why. And she lost it, telling me I had no idea how to raise a kid. I told her she needs to respect my methods or she can leave. She stopped, but the whole rest of the day you could tell she was furious. That night, my son was having one of those nights where he just isn't going to sleep through. My poor husband also had an IBS flare-up in the early hours, and we realized we had no medication. When my son settled at around 7:30 a.m., I decided to do a quick run to the 24-hour pharmacy to get some medication, leaving son and husband both asleep on the sofa. I was gone for 20 minutes, but when I came back, my mother's rental car was gone, and so was my son, while my husband was still asleep. He was as shocked as I was they had gone. Tried my mother's mobile, but no answer. After 45 minutes of me becoming increasingly hysterical, I called the police who came out very fast, and when I explained as above, took things seriously. 6 hours later, my mother pulled back up and started telling the police, most adults here know English, that I had told her she could take my son out for the day. I am currently 6 months pregnant, and she said it must be my pregnancy brain, which the police seemed to accept and acted like the matter was closed since my son was home safely and showing everyone the toys he had bought. I told my mother to leave and that I never wanted to see her again. She started telling family I kicked her out for no reason, and she can't find a hotel, and they blew up my phone, to which I told them she kidnapped my son, and I am going to pursue this with the police. Now I am being called an a-hole for saying my son was kidnapped when he was just taken on a day trip by his loving grandmother, and that an accusation like this could affect my mother's job as a nurse. Edit. Lots of people saying my husband shouldn't have pushed for this meeting. You are right, but I don't think he was wrong. He didn't force me to agree to it. I ultimately had the final say. And I get it. We are lucky his parents are amazing. So despite knowing my mother isn't great, he didn't want our son to miss out. We expected some snide comments and awkwardness, but we're ready to ignore that for our son. Since my mother's normal weapon of choice is nasty comments, he wouldn't understand, so if we kept smiling, he wouldn't know. I feel grief that my son is going to miss out on having another grandmother, but she made her bed. Edit 2. Holy shit, is this real life? So she is now trying to change the narrative to, I did not kidnap your son, but also, if you think your husband could just sleep through an abduction, then your marriage is a sham / how could you be so reckless to leave your child with him? I cannot even with this. Okay, I mean, it's quite simple. I don't think OP is the a-hole here, and the mother just needs to be kicked out of their life. I feel like this is the kind of story we could see on the news one day, where a kid goes missing for 10 years and then is found, I don't know, in Australia or Mexico. Yeah, OP, keep your mother far away from your child. You don't know if she's going to bring him back next time. So no, not the asshole. And Diagnosed Wolf says, kidnapping is taking a child out of the custody of their legal guardian without permission or justification. That's literally the definition of what your mother did. By definition, she kidnapped your child. There are, a lot of laws against that, and it should affect her work as a nurse. There are rules about nurses not being kidnappers for a reason. They have to be able to be trusted with people who are vulnerable, and kidnappers are, by definition, untrustworthy. Zygomaticus says, as a nurse, she should be well and truly aware that taking a child off A sleeping parent without permission and also being unreachable for 6 hours straight is not acceptable behavior. Much less one who also doesn't know her. Not the asshole, OP. Cracking Egg says, not the asshole. Also, you should press charges and make sure a restraining order is put, because it's only going to get worse from there. This was a kidnapping of a small child and should be taken with the utmost seriousness. So, I think the consensus in this story is that OP is definitely not the asshole. As I'm scrolling, I don't see anyone saying you're the ass or anyone saying everybody sucks here. I think it's a clear-cut case. Oof, this next story was posted by Intelligent Rain 7075, and it's called, Am I the A for telling my husband, 45 male, to stay in a hotel after he told our son he doesn't love him as much as his daughter? Oh boy. TA for privacy, so throwaway for privacy. My husband and I, 42 female, have a 10-year-old son. He has a daughter, 17 female, from his previous marriage. He's always been super close to her, and I think she's a great girl. But I always felt like he favored her over my son. He buys her more stuff, goes out with her more, etc. She comes over our house on weekends and was with us for a month, but went back to her mom a few days ago. He and his ex go out with her a lot, and they all have a good relationship with each other, but sometimes they go out more than our family does. But he doesn't see her a lot, so I understand. My husband and I were only dating for 1 month before I got pregnant, but he stuck around for me. After our son was born, we got married a few months later. I got it if he felt more connected to his daughter because he planned to have her, but by now it should be the same, in my opinion. He's always treated our son well, though, and loves him a lot. Last night, he got home and told me he had a terrible day at work. I understood and just gave him space. Our son was talking to him a lot, and my husband just ignored him. I was cooking dinner when he asked to play on his phone. My husband said yes and brushed him away. My son came over to help me a few minutes later and still had his phone in his hand. I told him to put it down, but he said he'd be careful. Unfortunately, he wasn't and accidentally dropped it in the sink with the dishes in it. I didn't see it at first, so it was there for about 10 seconds before he got it out. He started whining and told me he accidentally dropped his dad's phone in the water. My husband heard and came over. We tried to dry it and turn it on, but it wouldn't. My husband was already having a bad day, but this set him off. He was screaming at him, and I was trying to stop him, but he kept going. He was yelling at him for not being more careful and being stupid. What set me off was when he told my son he loves his daughter more than him, and that he's always messing shit up, and that he needs to be responsible like her. He and I soon got into a fight, and I was screaming at him for saying something as horrible as that. Our son was crying at what his dad said, and my husband said he's sorry, but he, son, always breaks his stuff. I was honestly so mad that I told him to leave and stay in a hotel for the night. He was furious but just left. I calmed my son down and tried to make him feel better, but even the next day he was upset. My husband called me this morning and he said he was sorry and was just having a bad day and that he wanted to come back home. I told him to give me time, and he said I needed to calm down and that he was very sorry. I told him the same thing and hung up the phone. My sister-in-law, 42, then called me and asked me to forgive him. She said he loves his kids equally and was just overreacting. I don't even know how to feel. My husband could have easily gotten his phone fixed and not freaked out. But I know he was having a bad day. Am I the asshole? Absolutely not the asshole, and OP's poor son is not going to be recovering from that. I feel like that night is definitely, and those words are definitely going to be something he remembers for the rest of his life, probably. You can't just say something like that and then say sorry and expect people to just get over it and I don't know, move on and be happy. So OP is not the asshole for being upset or for kicking her husband out. Dogmother123 says, your husband's actions tell your son that he loves his daughter more. His words only confirmed it. Not the asshole for being upset. This will stay with your son forever. Yeah, unfortunately. Tater Sprout says, nope, not the asshole. I wouldn't let him come home unless he agrees to therapy. Couples therapy and individual therapy. He is mentally abusing your son. Tell the flying monkey to back off. Tally Piper says, not the asshole. Your husband said something unforgivable. Your son will never forget the damage. Your son will never forget. The damage has been done. Your husband also spoke the truth. He does feel that way, and your son already knew this. His dad just confirmed it for him. Speaking from experience here, you were right to send him away. My mother didn't. I feel so bad for your son. And finally, Moon96 Moon said, your son is old enough for him to never forget this. He would always remember his dad. His own dad said he didn't love him as much as his sister because a phone, something that can't be fixed. Your son is going to be 20 to 30 years old and still in therapy if you let this abuse go on. And what your husband did is unforgivable, not the asshole. And it looks like across the board, again, people agree that OP is not the asshole. One person, third try is the charm, asked for info. They said info. Is screaming his typical response to being upset after a bad day? How often is stuff like this happening? And that's definitely a good question because it sounds like the husband does have some issues to work through. And like one of the other commenters said, I think therapy is definitely something that they should be doing. So that is it for story 4. Definitely not the asshole OP. Okay, so that is all for this episode. I hope you enjoyed the stories and the island tour. Have an amazing rest of your day, rest of your week, rest of your weekend, and I will see you in the next video.